the mastermind part. Okay. All right. So, thanks everyone, okay, for joining this. And right now, I think we are, moving for the CAP project, which is the, tokenization. And I think there's probably a few things to discuss. And Josh here may update, different. So Aaron, last time, I think we asked Aaron to review the ICO, okay, the Ian's materials, and to basically update us. What do you think? How would you like to continue? And also maybe the next item, and also the amount you like to receive for it, right? And for Josh, I think maybe you can update us about what you have surveyed about JCF. Okay. And Mike and I, we want to discuss about the HAP document. So, it can be more concrete towards a white paper with the business model. Yeah, I think these are at least some of the items. So, Mike, where would you like to start?
Good point.
What do you think is the most of concern, I guess?
I think the most concerning is to actually identify all of the elements of what the offer is.
Okay,
so
okay,
how,
all right.
How
so
is it
let's
going
do
to be
that.
tokenized?
Okay, all right.
But I mean, it's going to be quite nitty gritty. I think maybe if we got an update from Aaron first, because that would be quite a quick win, I should imagine.
Okay.
And then you said that Josh has got some comments that might impact on what we're doing.
Basically, what I asked Josh is the current JCF system is broken. Okay, it basically requires fixing. I had a discussion with him, but I'd like to ask him to perhaps survey ways to actually rebuild the system with the latest tools and tech. Okay, and do a migration. Okay, so It's not just fixing existing stuff, but we actually have a better system. Okay, and more easily maintained and basically more flexible. So, and my requirement is just to make the operation run, but perhaps with a 10x approach, not just fixing those systems. So I like his update on this. Okay. All right. So Aaron, why don't you go ahead? Yeah. And you can share screen if you like. Thanks. Yeah.
Sure. So I did have a look at the document.
Okay, good.
Here. So I created a little document as well based on the thing from the meeting.
Okay.
And your Dropbox notes. So the marketing plan, would it be like after we get approved, or because over here?
Well, it's part of, I think the marketing plan is part of what we want Ian to get approved. Yeah. So Ian has to approve everything we are preparing before he can announce to, his list of investors.
Okay. So it says provide you with the marketing plan and scheduler. Do you have access to that?
Okay, okay. So I don't think we got the marketing plan yet from Ian, if that's what Ian will provide.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is
definitely
kind of the way.
Okay.
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 Yeah, banner. I did create kind of like a banner. Do we have a logo for Flourish?
No, we don't.
We do not. Okay.
That is also something that we want, that wants to be created.
Okay, so I have kind of like a banner like this going on, and we
can
nice make the transparency
Mm-hmm.
like a little lower, and then put the logo here, put the website here, URL.
I see. Okay, so you're saying you can create a banner this way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just need a logo.
By the way, just quick things. Sarah，凯琳，那个图它是要版权的吗？那个图是你找的？
那个是用 AI 去做的
，AI应该没有版权问题，是不是？
应该暂时都不会有。
Okay, good. So Sarah said that was generated by an AI, so probably don't have to worry about copyright.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And social
which is
media
good.
accounts, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. This is what I extracted from the document. So
Okay.
here, they just have a quick like blurb over here.
A list, right? A list of things to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in general, I'm going to need the scheduler / plan to
Okay.
take action on this. And yeah, that's what I got from the ICO
Okay.
document so
All
far.
right. And my question would be, do you think you can do or get people to do pretty much, the items in the list?
Yeah, I think I can.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Mhm.
Do
We also have
are you
Upfile.
expecting any external help on any items?
Mm,
Or you think, or maybe you think you can just handle pretty much all the listed items pretty much?
probably would need some assistance with maybe the marketing plan.
Okay, I see.
On how it's
But
going to look
we have to
like.
get it from Ian first, right? To understand the full scope.
Yes.
Okay.
And
okay.
also any press announcements, I'm going to need insider like knowledge and also news updates from you guys. And maybe social media, right? So access to like a main email that we're going to use, a company email,
Mhm.
to
Okay.
set up the social media accounts. Are they currently set up, or do I need to?
No, I think what we want is probably set up all new ones. Yeah, because
Yeah,
this will
yeah.
be specifically for the tab ICO. So we probably
Mhm.
want to, start brand new ones for this purpose.
Okay.
And also, I think it will be easier and cleaner that way.
So we have the official site is done, right?
That's the official site for JCF, but not for tab. So you're
So,
talking about, okay, we have the official site for Flourish, okay, which is,
yeah.
kind of an 80%. But for tab, we probably want to have something more specific for tab, okay, because that's going
Okay.
to be the first ICO.
Okay.
So just to be clear, then, app is the platform. So we're doing the ICO so that we raise funds so that we can actually build the platform. Then from that, app will be enable projects like Flourish to then go on and raise finance for itself. So
Okay.
Flourish then becomes like a customer of Tap. Then any project that sits in kind of like the property market or real estate market will then come to Tap and go, hey, I want to tokenize my project. Can you do it for me? And Tap goes, yeah, sure we can. And then it's a tool to enable people to tokenize property projects. And that then becomes, so that's why they're significantly different. And TAP stands for the Advanced Property Program.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So is that clear, Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right. So any questions from Mike here?
No, I think Aaron, when you say Jinian asked you if you're able to do it, and you said yeah, you might need some guidance and help. I take it you're going to need that from us. That's my assumption, but tell me if I'm wrong. If you do feel that, or in fact, that's the good place to start first of all. And then if we all decide that actually we need to get somebody else external, then we can bring them in as and when we need to. And I would ask the question as to what do you think are the timelines that you're going to work towards to get this done? I mean, obviously you've told us about your internship, or whatever you call it, for the pharmacy, and then you've got your own classes and all the rest of it. So how much time do you think you're going to be able to spend on this? And I don't ask you that to pressurize you. I just want to understand what you have that's available.
Yeah, so I'll be waking up at 5 every morning, so I'm gonna get my work done in the morning. I have around 2 hours or so, 2 hour 30. Yeah, I think definitely bringing another person could be valuable. Work alongside me.
Okay. And so, all right, with that, then, do you have people that you already work with? Are there colleagues that you have at school that you would recommend, or are you suggesting that we get somebody else in completely different?
Yeah, I don't have anyone to recommend.
Okay.
I don't have enough information in general, I think, to make a decision on whether or not I need more help with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
All right. So okay, this is what I suggest. Okay, so definitely we'll ask him for the marketing plan. We also want to set up the workspace, which is there's already a version. I think I've invited you guys. Okay, but we'll have to make sure the pump.
Is it Pummel?
You know, the pump. Yeah, Pumper. And basically, we still want to set up the channels, right? Ian mentioned a lot
Yes.
of different channels within the workspace.
Mhm.
So is that something you can also take care just to set up, and we'll invite Ian to be in the space. I think probably what happens is all the communications will then be done from within the Bumble workspace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Do I
so
have admin access to? Looks
yes,
like I do.
I think, right. So you're already joining. Yes. So right now there's only, you can just create channel. See if you can create a channel. I think
Okay.
you should be able to. Yes. Okay. So, there's, Ian has listed a bunch of channels, right? Yeah.
Assets.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all of these.
exactly. Yeah. So please help create. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And we can, yeah, I think Ian also mentioned his email to, Ian Office. See that? Gmail, right?
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, so we can just invite. Okay.
Okay.
So I think what happens is the communications will happen in the channels, and Ian will be directly, and his team will also be directly, involved. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, maybe with the capitalization, I don't know if they allows, is it all lowercase or can capitalize that?
No, cannot capitalize the
Okay,
channel.
okay, all right, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, all right. So I think that's pretty much, and we'll ask Ian for the marketing plan. Okay, and maybe you can have a better assessment. Well,
Okay.
will that be all right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So, Mike, anything else?
No, I think it's cool.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Aaron. That was very helpful. All right. So, so Josh, would you like to update quickly your progress or anything you'd like to share?
好，那我这边的话我就礼拜六有跟顺源讨论到，就是要去就找找看有没有一些现成的，而且能够快速开发的工具，就让我们现在的某部分流程可以自动化嘛，这样子。
Okay.
那我这边的话，目前还没有进度，因为就2天前的事嘛，我还没开始看。
OK，好，
对，
那这边 OK 好，那 Josh，我想这边的话就是你就开始 survey，OK，然后有什么进度可以直接在 channel 里面 update，OK，在 Slack。
OK，
OK，然
我是打
后
算先从就看看，就可能先问问看 ChatGPT 之类的，看看他有没有什么建议之类的。
没错，很好，Yes，OK，好，很好。So Josh update is because he just got this request from me a couple of days ago, so hasn't started yet, but he's planning to use ChatGPT to do a preliminary survey on potential tools that can help to. So basically, two things. One is to get the current system into running state with maybe better technology or better tools. And second, also make the entry exit part automatic. Okay. So this is more related to the existing JCF fund. Okay, so yeah, so Mike, do you have any question, feedback on this?
For Josh, no, I don't.
Okay, all right, okay. So maybe we'll dive into the discussion. Okay, all right. So would you like, you want to share your screen or you want me to do it?
You share at the moment, and yeah, because I did a load of work this morning, but I did it on my tablet, so I've just got to figure out how to get it across.
Okay,
anyway.
all right, sure. So maybe I'll share my screen, okay, for now. And just to let you know what the, what I've done or current feedback, okay. All right, so I think this also would help to give Aaron, and Josh a better sense of what we're doing. Okay, so basically the Tab platform, it's for, so I'll jump right into it because this is something we can share access. Okay, so I'll just jump into the things I think that might worth a bit discussion. So the first thing is I was feeling that we might want to have a different name for when you term investor, okay? Because to differentiate between the roles of a property investor versus actually I was thinking about participant, right? Or sponsor or things like that of that nature. But then I settled on funder. Okay, I don't know if you like that, but basically to have a different term from investor, right? Because you do have investor here. And in the text below, I also see that you're using funds, right? So I thought funder. So maybe this is a point to, I guess to confirm. Okay. So Mike, maybe I'll share all my feedbacks, or you want to discuss one by one?
No, I think naming we can
discuss
coming back
later.
to that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. But basically the idea is to have a, basically the idea is to get to, I guess, a different terminology. Okay, different term. Okay. All right. So I don't have questions for this part. Okay, you can see I just changed investor to funder mostly here, right? Okay, so I think these are all pretty good general statements about, okay, just also quickly, I think to let, I guess, Aaron know, Aaron and Josh share. So basically, TAP is to tokenize, properties. And the benefit it brings, from the perspective funder, right? They can protecting that with their interest investment. And for the developer, it's access to capital that they otherwise, traditionally, they can borrow from banks, but banks don't cover the whole, right? Maybe a percentage of total capital. So we're aiming at these on this aspect 100% of the fund required. That is something, and obviously a global investor base that could also potentially get funds in quick. And so these are some of the good qualities. Alternatives, lending, banks. Okay, I think that's, yeah. So, right. You do mention that typically it's 65%, right? Plus of investment. Okay, right. So typically the developer also has to put, his or her own capital, right, into the project, or they have to be responsible for that. Okay,
There's some skin in the game.
Right, skin in the game. So the profit part, I think tokenization, okay, I have no issues with this. Just, the trading, I also add, it's also exchange. Okay, all right. So I think one thing to maybe to discuss is the fees involved, right? So there is the tokenization. So there are 3 stages, right? The first stage is to get the property to be tokenized. Okay, so this requires evaluating the project's, the property's value, right? How much tokens to be issued. know how much does each token will be sold market. And then there's the investment part. Okay, that is seeking capital to purchase the exchange for its rights. And then there's the trading part. Okay, trading or the exchange part, where once the tokens are created, they can be traded, right? They can be switch hands. So I have basically the, okay. So one question I have here is, I think the 10% of ICO raise, I think that is something that's okay. That's also something I specify. But the annually, okay, this is something I don't quite understand. Okay, so because if it's an annual fee, then that becomes actually kind of like a tax, kind of like an interest. And that is actually a burden, I think, for the project. And somehow, I think that's a really high interest rate, right? That, as a developer, landlord itself, I will consider that as really expensive. If it's a one-off thing, then fine, right? But if it's annual, that becomes like a 10% interest rate, and 10% interest rate is really high, actually, from my perspective, because I know that the banks in Taiwan, you can borrow funds at probably between 2% to 4 or 5%, and that is already considered, like 4 or 5% is already considered quite high. You can get property lending, for 2%, actually, 2 to 3%. And the other thing is the tokenization fee. In my version, I was writing something like a fixed fee. Okay, so because it's actually a fixed effort, right? So I would suggest maybe not as a percentage of. For me, I think 10% of the total ICO, more or less, that would be reasonable. But okay, this will be like 13%, just raising the first. Okay, so that's the feedback on the, I guess, on the fees part. And these are examples, right? So I think that's okay. I don't have too many questions with the rest. So I think the only thing is this part. I think that we want a discussion or a consensus. So I'll also maybe share my version. It's the tab ICO Q&A. So I think there may be some ideas about here that could integrate into your document, but more or less, I think your document is quite nicely formatted.
I'm going to try and join with using another thing just to see if I can share screen with it.
Okay.
Just, if I jump in and fall out again, sorry.
Okay. All right. So this is the part I like to highlight. Okay. Can you see this part?
Yes.
What? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically, right. So I mean, this is like a listing fee of. Okay. So there's a listing fee. I didn't really put the tokenization.
Sorry.
Okay. Is it okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah. My bad.
Okay. You might want to turn off one of it. Okay. So So the listing fee is actually a one-time, and I use this because Ian was charging us about 2 Ethereum, okay, which is about 4,400 US dollar. So, you know, from someone who's raising funds for an ICO, I was kind of using an ICO project, you know, raiser's perspective to see what's reasonable. And, you know, I did agree to these terms, right? So meaning that I'm actually, you know, wanting to raise funds for Flourish. So I sort of use my perspective to see this is something I was, you know, willing to pay. So, you know, $4,000 for listing fee and 10%, okay, of the total fundraise. So that would, in comparison with Kickstarter fee, which is 8 to 10%. But note that Kickstarter is also a one-time fee. It's not a fee. And you know, the 10% here, we can discuss how we like to do. And for Homebase, okay, this is also in reference. So Homebase mentioned that they actually have lower fee structure than traditional, you know, borrower lender. They charge 4%. That's the client they're working with for the current project. But you know, they only charge 4% of the capital base. That is Homebase client, of which Homebase actually charge only 0.25%. Okay, so as the platform, as the tech platform. So I think 4% is not a reference point. Okay, and yeah, Mike. So I don't know if I conveyed it. So those are this is my version.
Yeah, I guess it's only really relevant, right? If you're looking at what does it mean in terms of each project, and what does each project example mean in terms of? So I've still got mine. Is this still picking up? I've killed the mute. I've muted myself. Turn the sound off.
Okay.
Sorry, I could hear myself in the other thing. So
okay,
each project.
Yeah, go ahead.
Each.
I'll stop sharing screen. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now I've got myself in 2 screens now. So each project
okay.
has. It's very distracting. Just turn that way. So each project has its requirements, and then you've got what else? You've got a difference between each country. So you're talking about Taiwan, it's acceptable to do certain things. And your example of the 2 to 5% lending is from a bank. If you wanted to do Flourish and you wanted to get full development costs, what would it cost you?
You mean
in Taiwan, if you went to a bank in Taiwan and you said, right, I want to borrow 4 million to do the purchase and 1 million to do the build, for argument's sake. I'm not saying that those are your numbers, but for argument's sake. And that's going to generate, I don't know, for argument's sake, a value of 10 million. For argument's, you know, I'm just making these numbers up.
Right. Okay.
What would be your cost of finance? And would they lend it to you in the same context, or would they consider this to be more of a bridging loan? And in such, they would charge you a different rate. Because I think the high street rate that you get as a borrower, if you want to borrow, you know, on a long-term kind of mortgage, is very different to a development cost.
Oh, I see.
They're not the same. So I think and this is why I think it's really important that we work all of this out, because we've got to play with a number of different variations. And that's why it's complicated, and that's why it's important to get it right. So if I swap to the other screen, then I'll try and share screen on this.
I'd like to know just quickly, are you thinking about Obviously, we're creating a framework, right? So it could be a generalized model with maybe numbers different. I agree with you on the first point. I think the numbers could actually be different for different geographies, okay, due to the conditions, the borrowing rate, economics. So this may be a per geography issue, okay. That's the first thing, okay, that I would agree. But then I also like to know, because right now we have very specific, project Taiwan, and I think I'm focusing on Taiwan for the time being. Are you also thinking the same thing, or are you thinking that potentially you are also looking at projects, real estates in other areas other than Taiwan? I mean,
No,
what's your
I
thinking?
think to focus on just, I mean, the platform should be adaptable for any location.
Right, true, right.
If you build it you build it with the future in mind, so that it can adapt in any location, then that's building with the future in mind. The fact that the first example may be in Taiwan, that's just a, that's just the way it is. First example is in Taiwan.
Right. Okay, all right.
So it has to be adaptable to that market. There is another argument that says, well, regardless of what the geolocation is, this model will fit everyone. Now that's one way of looking at it. Or the other way of looking at it is actually let's say it's Henry, for instance, and his project. Let's say Henry determines these are the criteria that he wants. Zero interest, all up front, ownership model, boom.
Right,
so
right.
The tokenomics of that particular project will be very different to the tokenomics of a project that I might play with, for instance. Or it might be very different to the tokenomics of Flourish. So that then means that the market will actually determine whether or not it invests in the ICO of each different project, because the tokenomics is going to be different.
Okay. All right. So
regardless
of
all of that, though, what you have to prove is whether or not there's any money in it. Because at the moment, you're going from anything. If you're saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to get a fixed fee of $4,000 or a percentage of the raise," and then there's whether or not you see that's money in it for TAP, the entity. What makes TAP profitable? Anything.
Right.
How does it make money? Then if you say that it makes money effectively, it'll go for every $1 million that TAP raises, it'll make a percentage on that million. That's the only way it will make money.
Right.
Okay, so what does that percentage look like? Yeah. So then it's a case of, well, all right, if it's going to make money, then how much, and then how much will it take how long will it take to recoup its initial ICO investment and start bringing about a profit? I can't see any other way of making it work. Likewise, your investor is going to sit there, or your funder is going to sit there and say, well, all right, you want me to invest in this ICO and turn my dollars into tokens.
Okay.
What's going to be my return on investment, and when am I going to get it back?
Okay.
You've still got to answer those fundamentals.
Right. Okay. All right. So Mike, I do have a feedback on this. Okay. Which is and this is another point I want to discuss with. Which is I think some of these questions probably is best answered by Henry himself. Okay, because he will be likely our first client, or even for the first clients. And the other idea is, should we invite him as a partner to the project? Okay, because he can probably get insights as to what the market is willing to accept for the ratios, right? Because I think we already identified there's various kinds of fees, like listing, right, tokenization, and which I think we want to combine them, okay, into a one-time fee. Basically, listing means that you are tokenized on the platform. And then, you know, after the raise, right, after the ICO, we take a percentage, right? How much is the percentage to take? And then, you know, also for exchange, and whether there's any maintenance fee, right? That's, I think, already there's a few fees we have identified. And so at least there's listing, right? There's listing, and there's the ICO raise, and then there is also maintenance for still, you know, right, and then there's also the exchange, right? If the tokens are being exchanged. So at least these 4 fees or ratios. And my current thinking is that we want to go over this with him, okay, because he's going to be the first client. And one question I'd like to ask you is, do you see that maybe we should invite him as a partner to TAG, so he can provide his insights and contribution in exchange for,
Well,
I
mean, just inviting him to answer some questions is fine. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Whether or not that then develops into partnership or not, that's another thing.
Okay.
I think, though, regardless of whether or not Henry's the first client or the last client, you've still got to have a basis of how you want to operate, and where you're not being the buyer if you're just asking Henry, the only potential customer, what he wants. That's just being a seller. So, and from the point of view of who are your customers? Well, you've got Henry is only one half of the customer base. And in fact, one might argue he's the least important, because the funder is the more important, because without the funder, you're not going to be able to run any projects at all.
I see. Okay.
So your whole project, right, of being able to launch a platform which does real estate ICOs comes to nothing if there's nobody there to fund them.
Right. Okay.
So the offer to them has to be attractive enough. So when Henry sat there and he said, yeah, actually, I want a project where I don't pay any interest. Well, yeah, we all want projects where we don't pay any interest. Of course we do. So what's conversely, what is got to be a better option? And so, I'll give 100% of the offer away to the owners. Well, that works for Henry, because all he wants to do is make money on the management, and so long as he's managing a project, then he doesn't really care, because he's managing, and that's where he makes his consistent money. Is that he's removed all of the risk, because he's the monopoly that works. So then you're limiting down your everybody who's investing in that project has to see that there's clear gain for them financially. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And I think
so. My question would be, who is a good representative for the funders part?
Well, I think the best way of looking at it is you figure out what is current in the marketplace. So you're saying it's a 2 to 4% interest rate is what's current, and you base that upon high street lending. So I don't know Taiwan in terms of what's available there. So tell me what's available. Do you understand enough? And so if Henry's going to be able to sit there and say, or that guy Kevin, right, that actually when dealing with projects, we're looking at this sort of finance, and typically we would get this type of finance from this type of entity for this type of project. But if we went to this type of project, it would look like this, and it's different, because it is different in the UK, it's different in the States, and I bet you it's different in Taiwan. So in terms of who, well, you tell me who knows more about real estate in Taiwan. I don't. I don't
Okay,
know.
so Henry is definitely an expert. Okay, he's definitely an expert. And regarding, I guess, other experts, okay, the other experts I can ask is my, okay, now you're talking and you're asking, this is a good question. The other expert I think is ask my mentor, okay, Dr. Yang, because he's probably one of the top experts for real estate from development to marketing, in Taiwan, literally, like if there's like maybe top 3 to 5, he's among them, okay, of the leading experts in the space. So he's another one I ask regarding all the actual numbers, and also whether it makes sense for this platform to be having a better incentives for the local developers to go to, right, as an alternative funding source than existing. So I can definitely ask them as well. Okay. All right. So I already have a few to-dos. Okay. For example, Kevin as another client besides Henry. I want to check with Henry again what he's willing to pay, right, as a client in terms of the various fee or the fundraise, as Dr. Young. Now, regarding the funders, do you have any ideas who is to ask? Right
No, because
now.
I mean, our profile of a funder, right, is somebody who can put in $100.
Okay, this is something, well, the platform allows that, but I'm actually thinking about we want to set a higher bar than that. Originally, I was thinking of 1,000. You have to be able to put at least 1,000.
Okay. So in my book, the difference between 100 and 1,000 isn't much at all.
Okay.
Right? So $1,000, you're still going to have the same. You're still going to have the same club of people, really.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, is what are they getting in return?
Right. Okay. So Henry's project is offering 4%, annual return plus capital appreciation. Yeah.
This is where you have to differentiate between people who are funding the ICO for TAP, right, and people who are funding different ICOs that TAP orchestrates.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you can't. How do you know whether or not somebody's not going to fund the TAP ICO if they can't understand what their return on investment is going to be? So we have to illustrate that. And the only way you can illustrate that is by going, this is what the current market offers. These are the problems with the current market offer. This is what we're offering because we've provided you with solutions.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
So regardless of Henry or
right,
any of those guys, because now your profile is different for who you want. So we need to understand how we're going to structure TAP, and then how TAP is going to make money.
Right.
And although the thing is, what is TAP doing? Well, if it's the tokenization of property, in a sense, you take an asset and you split it into chunks,
mm-hmm,
and then you have a cost for each chunk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The person who benefits from that is the developer or whatever we want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and in Henry's case, he benefits 100% because he's released a load of debt. He's got some capital back in his pocket.
Right. So it's clear for him for the incentives. It's clear for him.
He's paying, and he's getting paid by himself for the project.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no risk involved with Henry for this project. All the risk sits with but what are they getting in return? And if you sit there and say, so what is TAP getting out of that? What value does TAP get out? And if TAP is only getting out an amount for orchestrating the whole transaction, that's a transaction fee. That's a one-off fee. that one-off fee is less attractive than a continuous fee for service. So you've got two types of fee, right? You've got a transaction fee and you've got a contract fee. If you've got contract revenue, you've got something that you can value the business on, because it's got contracts to the value of X, and therefore that gives it value.
By contract, are you talking about a sort of maintaining the investor-borrower
No, just
relation?
talk about it on general terms, right? If I sell you this phone,
right.
if I sell you this phone, right, then you give me $100 for it, and I give you the phone. That's it.
Right.
Job done. We never see each other again. You've got the benefit of that, and I've got $100. If I sell you the phone contract to do minutes, you're paying me $30 a month. I'm getting $30 a month. You're now worth
subscription. You're talking about subscription, right?
Yeah, it is a subscription in a phone context, yes. But I mean, the point, there's a difference between a transaction and a contractual relationship. Right.
Okay, right. You're talking about
So
for a period like, okay, so what does a contractual relation look like?
So if you sit there and do a piece of software for somebody and you write it for them and you agree a scope of works and you deliver the piece of software, then that's it. That's the end of your relationship with them.
Right.
Unless they want to have some other work done.
Right.
If you sit there and go, well, all right, I'm going to offer you support for this service, well, then you've got a contract there. The value is now more.
Okay, yes, so, understand. Usually that's like a software system that will kind of maintenance fee. For a fund, usually there's a management fee, right? I mean, like all the funds there, they charge an annual management fee, a small percentage, right?
Right, so now you're using the word fund.
Yeah.
So one of the things he said to me early on is, well, are we providing finance for people? And I got the impression that you didn't kind of want that. But at the same token, that is what we're doing.
Yeah,
because fundamentally
we're bridging the capital source with the developers that require capital. We're the bridge.
Right. So okay, bridging is an important term because it actually means something in English when it comes to property.
Right.
Bridging finance in any business is temporary finance that you get just to get you over a lump. So when Rockefeller was doing all of his deals right at the very beginning, bridging finance to fund the deal.
Okay, so I guess there is a maintenance value. Okay, so all right. I think so. This is what I plan to do. Okay, probably again to see Henry's feedback. And probably, potentially Kevin's
have him on the call. Let's have him on the call and just talk to him openly about it and go like, look, Henry, we're putting this together. Why don't you join us on a call? Preferably not when he's about to sit down in a restaurant with his buddy. Let's just talk through what you want from this and what you think will work. And we'll talk a little bit about the market and how we think it's going to work.
All right. Okay. All right. So
because then I can ask the questions that I need to ask, because otherwise we're not going to put together what Henry has to realize and what every other investor or developer has to realize is that there's a cost for everything.
There's what?
A cost for everything.
Okay. Yes, I'm sure he's well aware. He's a very experienced developer and property manager, so he's very well aware, I think. All right, so we actually have a sync. Originally the sync for the flourish is tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow at the same time when we start this. So I think that's 11, right? 11 a.m. for you, right? Today's call, right? We started at 11.
Yeah, I've got a meeting tomorrow at 11.
Okay, all right. How long will your meeting go? Okay, so I mean, just in general, okay. I want to discuss in general, actually, previously we already reserved the flourish time to be during that time. The Flourish will pause, okay, for now, the regular meeting, because, there's gap between the current floor space and, what Hermes can do. So we might want to find another operator. This is something I'm also doing. But for the time being, I think that time, because it was previously reserved, we can still use that. Okay. Well, 11:30 work, or yeah, 11:30.
Yeah, we can do something at 11:30. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is what I'll do. I'll invite him for a chat, tomorrow, and you can jump in at 11:30. I'll probably start with him at 11. Okay, first, just to discuss and know about his thinking. And okay, so that's Henry's part. Regarding the funder, I'm thinking about Ian. Do you think Ian is a good person to ask what the funders potentially would be willing to pay for? Or
I think we need to actually structure it ourselves and get an understanding as to what we think is right and fair and good.
what to understand what?
What we think is right and fair and good.
Okay, sure.
Asking other people
Yeah.
for their opinions is great, but we've also got to have an opinion as to what it is that we're actually doing. We have to have a vision. So
Right. Sure.
It's not just that we're going to
Yeah.
tokenize properties. We're going to have to tokenize properties, and we're going to make this much money out of it.
Right. So
Otherwise, what's the point?
So Mike, here I guess we already have sort of a difference in terms of view, right? In terms of the so this is what I'm thinking. Okay, this is what I would suggest of your version. Okay. So no, I think it's this one. What is that? Okay. So maybe I'll put my version here. So in terms of the, I'll just write my comments, okay? Can I type something here? Okay, all right. I think I can do it. Okay. So basically what I'm thinking is that I think it should be a fixed fee. So maybe like, 4,000 US dollar, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. Something like that. Okay. And for the 10, and so this is my view. Okay. I think it's one time for 10%. And then we can charge potentially a management fee afterwards. But the fee should not be too much as to, imposing as a, so I'm actually thinking about something like a 0.5% and, okay, or even less, This is just to basically to maintain, because as long as the project is still with us, there could be some like fund releasing. Okay, we act as the arbitrage between the funders invested, well, the fund will in exchange for tokens, but the fund, to protect the funders' rights, we may not release them to the developer all at once. Okay. There could be some maybe stages or milestones.
When does the funder get any money?
I'm sorry?
When does the funder get any money?
They get money when, when I guess the property is making either rental profit, okay, or when it's being sold, right, or liquidated. That's when they can get their return on investment.
Okay. If you say I think you said 7%, right, is what you anticipate Taiwanese market to grow by, right?
Okay, so yeah, probably the 7 to 10%.
Okay, call it 10% then.
Right. Okay. Mhm.
So if you've got 100, let me see if I can do this. 1 second. Let me see. Where's the share button? Come on, share.
Okay. You want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Okay. All right.
See if this thing works. Start. 2, 1. Everything's being doing. Okay, so we recorded. Is that working or not? There.
Okay. Go ahead.
Start
I'll
share.
let
Yeah,
you share.
share. Come on.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. This is the stuff I was
Okay.
doing this morning.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So on this, look. So you've got right, landlord, owner, realtor, investor in terms of property, developer, agent. I put that in there as being laird, right? Because laird is a Scottish term for lord, but it's also it's an acronym of those elements. So it gives us one word. Then we've got
Mhm.
financial investor. Got two perspectives, right? So we've got the financial investor, that's the funder, and then you've got the person who's involved with property. So from a laird point of view, what does a laird want? Well, they want buyers, they want money, they want property, they want income, they want tenants, right? So that's everything below the line. If you're an investor, what are the consequences of that? Well, there's risk, there's debt, there's credit scores, there's taxes, there's regulations and liabilities and so on and so forth. So everything above the line is the consequence of everything below the line. So you start off on the left with a property, okay? And then the traditional way of doing it is you have some form of finance from the debt and then a deposit. I'm not going to actually go through all of this. This is important, I suppose. Rent is the cost of finance. So rent minus cost of finance, operational expenses, maintenance fees, that equals your cash flow or your gross profit.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen to the market. It could go up, it could go down.
Generally, you mean the capital
speaking,
appreciation, right? The capital.
Yeah, it tends to increase by 3 to 10% per year.
Okay.
Depending on where you are.
Right.
So when people refinance, the lenders take a percentage of the equity in an application fee. That happens. So that actually happens. So in the short term, you have problems from a laird's point of view. You have finding finance, and then the cost of finance. The long-term benefit is you get consistent profits and capital gains. So then I went into so what's the project?
This is for who? This is for the funders or the developer.
So this is for what you would have called the not the funder, the other one.
In our terminologies, the developer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So a project then. This is a standalone property project with given costs and profit expectations. Right? So we tokenize one project, whether or not you use 100 units or 1,000 or whatever, and whether or not you use $1 or £1 or €1 or a yuan, I don't care. And that's another thing I realized is that if we're going to make this international, then you're going to have a means of currency conversion. Integrated into the
right. Sure. Yeah.
Now you've got different exit strategies. Now, if you look at an owner, somebody who owns the property and is looking for long-term ownership, and ultimately they want to pay down the capital that they borrowed, right? Then that's one element. You got somebody who's going to rent it, then that's another thing. They need to purchase, revalue, refinance, rent, and pay down the capital. These are exit strategies, right? A developer simply wants to build and sell, right? And in an agency, they just care about taking the management fee.
That's
so you
Henry,
have to value your...
That would be Henry in this case.
Yeah. So you would have a property and it's valued at the start. That's your baseline. So if your property is bought for 100,000, that's 100 tokens at 1,000 each, for example. Right, or then obviously if you do 1,000 tokens, then it's 100 each. And yeah, so this is variable depending on what can be variable is the amounts here, right? So how do you add value on any property? So if you see this little scheme on the left, it's I don't have actual. Oh wait a minute, I have this.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, like how many tokens to issue, it could be up to the developer as well, right? Whether they are happy,
yeah,
100 piece or 1,000 piece, right? That could be up to the developer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you start here. You buy a property. You either refurb it or you rent it. Okay, it doesn't really matter. It goes that way. Then at some point, once you've bought it, if you're developing, then you go on and sell it, or indeed. Oh, so why have I gone 6? Fine. Or you might actually refinance it. Okay.
When you mention refinance, is it mainly to get a lower interest rate as the purpose, or there are other incentives?
So you can do several things. You refinance because you want to, one, get a lower interest rate.
Right.
2, remove the original lender that you're borrowing from somebody else. 3, you want to release equity because you've added value, and you want to use that equity for something else.
Okay. So you're saying that part of that could be recover the capital invested. That could be another incentive for refinance. Is it?
Yeah. Because I mean, let's say I lend you $1 million. You then went and invested that $1 million in a property. You then, you invested 800 in a property and you added $200,000 worth of value, but then that's created a property now that's worth 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
You then refinance that to 1.75, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've generated $500,000 worth of profit. You pay back the $1 million that you borrowed from me.
Mm-hmm.
Your property now that's worth 2 million is now generating rental incomes that pay off the mortgage of 1.5 million, and you've got $500,000 in your pocket.
I see. Additional capital.
You can then use that on your.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah.
See you later, Aaron. So you can now use that for your own for your next project. So that's how it typically works, and that's how people utilize the system. And that's the system that we're trying to replace. So we have to have something which is comparable in some form or shape. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
You've got these. So there are certain things that you need to include in the cost. So you buy and you rent and refurb, and then, generally speaking, you're generating profits if you're buying and renting, and you're waiting for the capital gain. But the person who's benefiting from this is the entity that lends you the money, because they're not going to lend you the money unless they're getting some interest. So anyway, so when you buy and then you revalue, there's an increase in terms of the capital gain.
Mm-hmm.
So if you bought now and it's gone up by 10, so let's say we use it for 100,000, right? So we buy at 100,000 in some point in the past, right? We've now valued it, and it's now valued at 110,000. So if we had 1,000 tokens at $100 each, one token is now worth 110. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or we've got 1,100 tokens plus 100 new tokens redistributed evenly between however many people have got tokens and not tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's the capital appreciation. Okay, that's that model there. but then none of that. That's all about if you've got 1,000 tokens paying for that initial bit of capital, then how many tokens does TAP get? Where does TAP get its money from? Because all of those tokens are equivalent to all of that capital that's required to pay for the project itself. So where's the profit?
All right. So this is my thinking. Okay, I mean, when there are two ways to look at this. One is that we are also holding, the tokens being raised. We can choose to hold it or to cash it, right? And if we hold it, then the capital appreciation will also reflect as our gain. Okay, so I think that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, but no, that's true. If you say that I'm raising, if one token is worth $1 and I'm raising $100,000,
right?
Where does TAP get its tokens from?
So that would be the I think in terms of the tokenomics, okay, that could be if it's only raised, right? So okay, let's say in your example here, let's use the example here. I think each token is $100. Is that right? Okay, so you have 1,000 tokens, right? So after the 1,000 tokens are created, okay, each one is valued at $100, for example. Okay, then what happens is we take 10%, okay, of the funds raised as a platform. Okay, so that means we own 100 tokens of the the 1,000.
Who's going to give us those?
This is so right. So okay, yeah, that's a good question. I think in the okay. So I think in the exchange we have with I think there are two ways to do this. One is obviously there's an extra charge, but I don't think funders like that, although it actually means the same thing. It's literally that I think there are two ways to do this. One is that we actually create like 10% more tokens. In that case, it would be 11. Instead of 1,000, 1,100, right, tokens, of which we own 100 of them. Okay, and that 1,100 tokens represent wholly the underlying asset value, which initially are basically, let's say, USDT, right? So basically, for example, if we are raising funds, right, at let's say 1,000, we're raising funds at $100 token each, right? $100 per token, and we are raising 1,000 tokens, right? In this case, so we raise a total of 100,000 equivalent USDT. Okay, that's the initial asset value, but it's against 1,100 tokens we actually issue. So that means the NAV, the net asset value per token, actually is lower than $100 to start with. Okay, because we have taken 10%, and that can be calculated actually rather easily, which is basically we're taking $100,000 and divided by 1,100 tokens, which means each token actually start to have $90, okay, against a $90 USDT value, okay, to start with. However, because the potentially, that is the what happens is that amount, the USDT, we can treat that as cash, okay, because it's also exchangeable to cash. It can then be used to, let's say, purchase the property, do the renovation, do the improvement, whatever, right? So the asset value, okay, of a total of 100K initially, it's expected to increase over time, okay? After the improvement, after time, after operation, it's supposed to improve. So that would increase the net asset value from $90 per token to climb up, Ideally.
Yeah, that's what I showed here.
Yeah.
So that's what this bit here is, right? So if you assume that this 100,000 includes the purchase of the property and the
Right.
value add that you, so it's,
Right.
it's
That created, yeah.
purchase and then value add, right?
Right.
So that's what that 100,000 is for, okay? And then once the value's been added, it's now worth 110.
Right,
so that's
right.
where the token is increased in its value.
Right, the token value, correct, yes.
But you've still got to take into consideration then that, and okay, we went down a bit of a rabbit hole with that one. Just let's park that idea for a second, because it's something that we need to consider, which is why it's important that there's some level of financing in this. So if we then say, all right, it's now worth 110, what would be the rental income? So if we recap, we have the rent minus what is traditionally the mortgage or other cost of finance, agent fees, and then operational expenditure. That gives you your gross profit or your cash flow.
Right.
So what does that typically look like? So your rent minus something in the region of about 30%, 10% and 10%, which gives you something in the region of 50% profit. Now, I'm not saying that if you had a property for £100,000, you would get £500 worth of rental income. That's what that is. But I've just used that as an example. And this is where it's important to get the examples working properly. But if you sit there and say 500, a third of that is for mortgage, 10% is for the agent, 10% is the OPEX, then your profit is 250.
All right.
So at the end of 12 months, what have you got? You've got £3,000 in terms of operating profit. So how does that work out on our 100 tokens? So $100,000, 100 tokens, you're looking at one token is $1,000. So all of this, cost of finance is 30%. So that's 150 times 12, so that's 1,800 divided by 100 tokens. That's 180. So if you take this is your operating profit and your capital gain divided by 100 tokens, and you've got up £210 in total, or dollars, right? So for $1,000 investment, one token has gone up in terms of capital gain 10%, and then revenue is, well, it'll be 210. Or did I make a mistake there? Actually, I made a mistake there, didn't I? I did make a mistake.
Mike, I think this can be simplified by, we can just make an assumption of, what the breakdown, right? Henry already mentioned, after all the deduction, it's 4%. I think in the case you just give, the rental the rental income is about 3%, right, of the property value. So the 4% he gave is not far off from, your case here. So, I mean, maybe we can just use this 3 to 4% as a basic idea, right, about the potential rental income that can come from the property against the property value, right, initial value. Obviously, we're expecting capital appreciation, right? So, yeah, that means
okay. So whether or
rental.
not I got my maths correct with this bit here, right? In terms of
Right,
the actual
I think
numbers,
I think it's in the right neighborhood. Okay, this is in the right neighborhood.
But the point is, if I'm looking at that as an investor,
right,
and that's what I'm going to get, 3% per annum, why would I do this?
Oh, because it's stable, and also, there's I mean, this is relatively stable, I guess, and safe, and also asset backed. And also you get the potential, actually, I think for most property investor, at least in Taiwan, they are looking more at the capital gain than the rental part. The rental part is
They have to,
usually a
because
nice.
they don't have the choice. If you rent in London, you don't look at the rental income, you look at the capital gain. You don't have a choice because it's so expensive.
Right, true.
So
yeah, same in
where
Taiwan.
something
Same
is
in Taiwan. Yeah.
Right, okay. So, but if I'm sitting there, if I'm a family office and I've got $10 million to play with, or $100 million to play with,
right,
where can I put that money? At a global level. One of your key points was that, well, we can. But one of the pros to TAP is that you can borrow money internationally. So you're a Taiwanese developer, you can borrow money internationally. So you can't think about what's acceptable for a Taiwanese investor.
Okay.
You have to widen your scope, because your scope is for an international investor.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So 3% isn't necessarily attractive. 4%.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously, I think the capital gain part has to be factored in. Okay. Although, again, I like to emphasize, and this is also Henry's point, which I kind of agree, is that there are different investor appetite. And, even though 3 or 4% may not seem much, if it's stable, plus another thing, this can be liquidated quickly. I think that is attraction, and that's the value we're providing. I think the value of liquidation cannot be, underestimated in our case.
How can it be liquidated?
Well, you just sell your tokens to the next hand, to whoever would like to, take over your original investment, right? And
that is assuming that there are people in the marketplace that want to buy your token.
Exactly. But I mean,
the thing is, I agree with you. That is a good thing.
Liquidation is highly valuable.
But you can't. Highly valuable. Yeah, but you can't. You can say that it's an option.
Right.
But that makes the assumption that there's people in the marketplace demanding the tokens. There's got to be a demand for the supply.
Right.
Which does in fact mean, and this is the interesting part, because then, and this is why it's important having all this dialogue, Shenyang, because it might be that from sitting there and doing a little bit of thought on this, we would make more money off of the exchange of tokens.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And
yes.
if that's, but we need to understand what that is.
The switching hand might generate more income than simply doing tokenization.
But what is that though? What number do we sit against that? Because that's a target, that's a goal, and that then comes down to, if I'm an investor and I'm going to invest in TAP ICO, I want to know what the project is going to generate me. How is it going to generate the income that it's well, we've anticipated that there's going to be the liquidation of assets is going to generate $1 million a month.
So Mike,
Or-
I like to provide I understand your perspective. You want to nail down the investor perspective, right? In terms of what's the expected ROI, what's the expected exchange, right? Okay, so I don't feel, right, well, obviously this requires some research and also some assumptions, right? Regarding the, I guess the, what we're looking at here. Okay, but I also like to point out one thing, which is I think we want to get a roughly okay idea before moving on. Okay, as opposed to spend too much time on this.
But there's no idea at the moment, Shunyun.
Right.
It's not even a rough idea.
So for example, right, if we use the total real estate market size, okay, so this is maybe a ballpark of what we can be looking at, which is again, some assumption or some research is required here. But I think in my document here,
Yeah, you said it was
okay,
like 3 trillion, right? For Taiwan.
5% of the Taiwanese market, right? So that's you know, I think there was already an estimate here.
I
which
don't agree
is,
with the way we should come up with this number. Because
right,
it's just,
agree.
It's just,
So okay, yeah. So we can
it's
refine
just a
this.
fantasy number, Shunyun.
Right.
And it's
Right.
and it's just it's not based on anything. If you're investing in something, you want a number that's tangible. That's not tangible.
Well,
I'm going to make 5% of. I'm going to achieve 5% of the market in Taiwan. How?
right.
How was you going to
That's
do
a
it?
different question. That's a different question, obviously.
If
I
I'm
mean,
investing in this,
right.
how are you going to do it? Because I'm giving you
Justify,
my
right?
money.
You're talking about how we are going to achieve that, right? Right. Like, okay.
Yes.
So obviously, okay. Again, I think this is something we might want to ask. This is something I want to ask Henry's opinion for. Okay. And another reason why. Right.
The answer to the question is we provide the best service out of all that's there.
Right.
And we know that out of and this is where you do have to do some analysis, and this is where it's like this is not just about 80%, 20% rule. Okay, having a gut instinct on something is the right way to have an idea about moving forward with a project. You've got to back that up with numbers, because otherwise it's just fantasy.
I see. All right. So I have
so
to
in the
admit.
example I gave you,
Yeah, go ahead.
right?
Yeah. Right.
In the example I gave you, I said for every $100 million that we fund, we will make 5 million.
Okay.
That is far more tangible to an investor, because then you're sitting there, you're not making any grandiose plan about, well, I'm going to get 5% of the market. No, you're just saying something very simple. When we fund 100, and if you think about it, 100 million in terms of property projects, that's only a couple of projects, really.
Right.
I say a couple,
sure.
it could be 5, right? Or 10, whatever. It's not a big number.
Right.
5% of 3 trillion. Right? That's okay. So actually, you've written
That's a big number. Yeah.
What?
All right.
That's 168. Is that? Oh wait, 5% of 3 billion. I'm looking at your numbers there. What are you looking at? 5% market share would be 3
trillion. 5% of 3 trillion. Is that your question?
No, well, I couldn't remember. The Taiwanese market, right, is 65 billion. Oh, right, okay.
Right, 65 billion. Yes, 65 billion.
Right. So
this is probably bigger
share.
now. That was 3 years ago, right? So obviously,
it doesn't matter, right? Because you're saying a 5% share of 65 billion is 3 billion. That's still a huge amount.
Right.
I would find it more realistic to say look, the average property, the typical Taiwanese property project is a $10 million property, right? Typically.
Okay. Right.
So, if we're going to aim to raise 100 million,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Finance for $100 million worth of property. Okay.
Okay.
That's reasonable because
Right.
that's 10 projects.
Okay. Sure.
And
Right.
then we're gonna do.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly fine. Okay. I think this is just an estimate, and if you feel that 3.27 billion is too much, that's perfectly fine. Okay. Although I don't know, I think that's maybe achievable. Okay, if we're really creating a good service, that's
Of course, it's
top of the
achievable
game.
if we're creating
Yeah.
a good service, but set realistic expectations, because if you
Right,
set
sure,
too grandiose
sure.
a plan, people
Yeah.
won't believe in you because
All
you
right.
haven't got the
Yeah.
infrastructure
So
to
Mike,
do it.
that's fine. That's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Okay. If you want to use 100 million as the tokenization size, that's fine too. And I think it's just a ratio, right? Again, 5% fee, that would be 5 million, right? In terms of the revenue. And then I think we just have to, again, if we just assume there is an exchange rate, right? Let's say out of the 100 million tokens that's issued by us, there is a turnover, okay, of, I don't know, let's say within a year, right? There's like a 10% turnover rate. Okay, again, this is assumption. So, I mean, I guess I'll just write it here. Okay, so for the exchange income, assuming there's there's like a 10% turnover, and for 100 million tokenized project, right? That would be like 10 million exchange, right, per year, right? And if we are charging, if we charge, let's say 0.25%, right, as the transaction fee, right, the trading fee, right, then that would be, I mean, this is easily calculable. I mean, it's just based on that would be 10 million, right? 10 million times 0.00 25, right? Yeah, 0.25, right? So that's $25,000, right? So,
You sure?
right. So that would be $25,000 per year, right? So, I mean, there you go. That's the number, right? That's the number.
Doesn't seem like a lot.
No. So the reason it doesn't seem like a lot, again, it's because we are talking about this and we are assuming just 10% turnover, right? For if it's like a monthly turnover, right? I don't know.
You need to. I'm sorry, mate. If I use my calculator and I go 10 million and I times it by 0.25, not 25,000, is it?
Yeah, 25,000. Yes.
No, that's not 25,000 for him.
No.
2.5 million.
It's 0.25 trading fee.
0.25.
So it's 0.0025. Yeah.
0.25. You know, he's saying
0.0025. Yes.
Well, that's different then. Okay, finance.
Yeah. So
well,
it's 25,000.
25%.
Right? I'm sorry.
That's not 25%. That's not 25% then, is it?
25%. No, this is
if we point, if we
0.25. trading fee.
Right.
Assuming it's 0.25%, right? I mean,
Right. So
obviously
that's a
we can,
quarter of a percent.
right, it's 1/4%, yes.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, okay. All right,
Right.
carry on.
But
Right.
I mean, this is just some ideas, okay? So again, you know, 10% turnover per year, maybe it could be per month, right? Or maybe it could be like, I don't know, 20% or 30%, which is possible, right? If it's swapping
Yeah, I
hands.
guess the thing is with this example,
Mhm.
you just don't know what the exchange is going to be, and it could be massive, it could be tiny.
Exactly.
I suppose the thing
exactly.
is, if
Yeah.
it's tiny,
Mhm.
then you're only really looking, you know, does it pay for itself?
Right,
So
exactly.
there's,
So again, I like to use this as the number. Okay.
Yeah.
If on the other hand, okay, if we're talking about this, right? If we are actually looking at you know, 65.48,
but here's the thing,
right?
Shinyan, that from the
Okay.
point of view of illustrating it to an investor, you might say,
Oh,
it could
sorry.
be.
This is the 3.27. All right, go ahead.
You might say that yeah, I mean that's just too fanciful. You've got, it's just too fanciful a number. You've got nothing, you've got no ground on which to base it.
Well, I think it's yeah. So
You've got nothing to base it on. You're just pulling the number out and going, yeah, well, 5% seems reasonable.
right.
Well, 5%
This
reasonable.
is
10% seems better. It just
right.
doesn't, you know. Like 100 million is an achievable number because it's 10 times the, you know, it's 10 projects essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine. So that tells you that and like if you're saying that we're going to get 5% of that 100 million, right? It's our fee. Then
Mm-hmm.
that's 5 million. That's not a bad amount. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the investor going to get?
Yeah. So the
Why would
investor,
anybody
okay.
invest in any of these? Why would the investor get? So let's say then that we've got all right. So we've now established that in year one, TAP, when it hits its numbers, will generate $5 million worth of profit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're asking for a 1.5 million investment. So that 1.5 million turns into 5 million.
Well,
So that's great.
this is actually, let's say if we achieve, you know, 5% of the Taiwanese market, this is what we're looking at with the assumed numbers.
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic, Shinyan. So there's no point in
Right.
talking about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Go for the numbers. Look, it's just you've got to make it realistic. Otherwise, people are not going to take you seriously.
okay. All right. So I accept that. Okay. I accept that you don't think that. I mean, don't see that as realistic. So yeah. So what I guess the question will be, what do you see as a realistic number? You know,
I've said that.
100 million.
100 million.
100 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's only 10 projects.
Yeah. So again, so if it's 100 million, then yeah, then I guess that would be 5 million. Yeah, that would be 5 million.
Right. So
Yeah.
that then takes your think about it from their point of view. They're going to go from 1.5 million to 5 million in terms of the value of the TAP, the entity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's a reasonable set of numbers. Now, if you sit there and you go, well, actually, we did actually get 5% in the market within the first 24 months, and so we're now worth 3.2 billion. Well, everybody's going to be singing and dancing and clapping their hands and saying thank you very much, right?
Right.
And that'll be outstanding, record-breaking stuff. But it's better to start with what is something which is if people can actually tangibly think about and see, and then they can sit there and say things like, well, but you can put that as a carrot in the background, but don't hang yourself on it.
Yeah,
because if you say to an investor that's going to invest 1.5 million and I'm going to make 3.27 billion, and that's what we're going to do. If you don't deliver on that, you're an incompetent buffoon, is what they'll think of you. And they'll run away from you. You'll lose all credibility. If you sit there and say, I think we're going to, we've got a reasonable number of 10 projects. When we get those 10 projects, we believe that on average, that will generate around about 100 million. That's something people can accept.
Okay. All right.
They can see that as being like,
yes. Okay. So Mike, I think just do it as you suggest. Okay. I mean, that to me is already a success. If we can generate, 5 million in terms of we're only taking, 1.5 million or even 3.5 million for that matter, right? I think that's already success. That's already good because that means we are already, building up an operation that is, making a profit, right? And it's only a matter of how we're going to grow this, in terms of scaling up to more projects, to more markets, right? So I see that as already something good enough. If that makes the communication, more realistic, more acceptable, by all means, go for it. Okay, I have nothing against that. Yeah.
So sorry, you've got me on screen.
On screen? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I can just see one big picture of me. It's not very nice.
Okay, all right. Put you on the spotlight. All right. So yeah. Fine. So Mike, I think yeah. Use 100 million as a expected goal for the tokenization. I think that's perfect. I mean that's fine, and we can just do all the estimates based on that.
Okay, so that then, so we're taking a management fee of 5%
per year, or for the ICO raise. For the ICO raise.
How are we generating that 5 million?
Oh, the 5 million, that was basically if we are charging 10% of the of the raise. If we are tokenizing 100 million, we are actually charging 10%. Okay, so this is because in that model I presented, we are actually sharing that with the quote unquote ICO advisors. Okay, so we're only taking 5% of that. The other 5 will be for the ICO advisors who are, helping with the credibility, a role like or someone similar. Yeah, I guess that was the original.
What? You're giving away 50% of your profit, your business model, to other people.
Well, I guess this is again up to if this is a ICO project, that's kind of the ICO rule book. But if it's
yeah, well, okay, I don't know. Look, I think the ICO rule book is a bit skewed because it's so far the reason why you've got a volatile market is because there's so many people just doing
And
stupid things.
people are willing to accept that because they are expecting like huge unreasonable return. That's
exactly.
again, yes, right. So I agree with you. I mean,
So I don't necessarily think that's the way in which we want to structure our business is on systems which are just
right. Although I, for me, right now I don't know what's the, frankly, I'm not sure what's the right approach yet. And I think we do want to try this. One
try
of the
what?
thing is that, if we are taking like 10% of it, then we also bear the responsibility of making sure that we are able to find funders that are, willing to, join the projects. So I guess this is where I'm unsure of, for example, like where's Ian's role after the ICO for TAP? Well, we still involve Ian, right, in terms of raising funds or ICO style for listed real estate projects, right? Because, or maybe, those investors are probably more like analytic and they will be very reasonable to see. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying, right? Like what I tried to convey.
Well, okay. So
Yeah.
if you're going to
Like,
invest,
do we
if
want
you're
the
going to
credibility, right? Yeah, and reputation
if you
for
want
the subsequent phase. Yeah.
right. So if Ian sits there and is part of it and he's an advisor, then he's going to want to get his 10%, isn't he?
I'm sorry. If he's the advisor, he what?
He'll want his 10%.
Yes, and this is where I think we want to negotiate, right? Because that 10% is what the platform will take. So this is why I propose, it could be like a 50-50 split between Ian and us. That would be one way to do it. Okay. Obviously, there are other ways. I think it's again on the relative power and I guess on the trustworthiness of, let's say we have our own investor list, right? The funders list through Ian's or whatever sources, right? And they trust us well enough of our projects listed, the quality of the listed projects, right? The reliability of the platform of the project themselves. Then maybe we don't have to have a role like Ian, right? To advocate.
No, for sure. I think Ian's either a temporary fix or he's a long-term asset. But a temporary fix is where he's charging us his 10% or whatever, and a long-term asset is where he's actually getting a percentage of the projects overall.
Right.
In more of a kind of co-foundery way than anything else.
Right. So I mean, this is something, and in my proposal here, I guess in my original proposal, I was thinking about putting Ian, as part of so this is where I put this here, right? The 10% fee is equally shared between TAP and ICO advisors, whoever we're working with. It could be Ian, it could be someone else. Okay, there's a lot of ICO advisors out there, right? And because I think this also relates to, for example, whether we as a platform is enough, right, to attract the funders' interest, and their trust.
Well, we will be.
Right? Yeah, yes, over time. And obviously we want that as the end, right? At the end of the rainbow, that's where we will be, right? But, in the process moving there, it's a process. It takes time, right? It could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. I don't know, right? And so I guess this is, and again, for us, I think as a platform, we also have to think about, is there any role for the ISO advisors in this case, right? Because either there are such ICO advisors, they can advocate for the projects that are raising, or we kind of have to be the advocate, right, to gain the funders' trust. And again, I'm thinking about who, not how. I'm thinking about partnership. I'm thinking about, let each person do the best at what they do. Right now, sort of from my perspective, we are the glue that glues together the different experts, different domain experts, integrating them into something that's valuable, right? While we give everybody a share of profit, right, that they're happy with. So they're happy to work with us, right? Same for Henry, same for Ian. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, I'm sharing with you my thinking process. And I take inspiration from, well, this is something I would recommend, if you have the time, you can visit. Think and Grow Rich. I've been listening to that, on a weekly basis. Recent example was the creation of United States Steel Company. Okay, it was only a plan from the mind of a single person. Okay, and he conceived the idea to basically convince the bankers to put capital, merge all the steel companies into one giant company that has economy of scale. Okay, so convinced Carnegie to sell the companies for $400 million, but then they created out of just the combination $600 million of worth of value, and that was simply due to the plan of the glue, right, of this one person's idea. So I kind of think that's the kind of the value that we're creating and bringing to the table, which is a new way to structure collaboration among previously, experts that are not really working.
Okay, right? Fine, but that's true. But those bankers and Carnegie wouldn't have done it unless they saw that the numbers work.
Right. You might have heard of that example, right? That was from Think and Grow Rich. That was a case study.
I've read the book twice, and I'm reading his other book at the moment, which is a bit more interesting.
Right.
But anyway.
So, obviously, this is open for discussion. Okay, it's not nailed down yet, but that's where the 5% come from for TAP. Okay, which is, I'm assuming we're splitting with the ICO advisor, 50-50.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that 10% fee, right, is coming out of the initial raise. So if we raise 5 million for Flourish, for argument's sake,
right,
and then 10% of that
500K would be the fee.
Right. Okay. And then so TAP gets that. All right. Now the thing is, all right, that's fine. So when we've got to figure out the question about how that 500K. So if you're the thing that we were talking about earlier was the tokenization of that. So if I'm an investor, what does that mean to me? So I take, so I've invested some money in the 5 million raise. It's raised 5 million. 4.5 of that straight away goes to TAP. Sorry, 4.5 of that goes. So the actual value of the property is 4.5 because 500,000 sits with TAP.
Right.
So we've got to figure out how to position that, if that's the case.
Yes, that is something. Well, that is something that can be seen as a cost of capital, for the fundraiser, for the developer. Because
but if I'm borrowing, if I'm lending you money, then I want to know what I'm going to get back in return, and I don't think particularly with property, I don't think just promising only a share of the asset value is good enough.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Because that's not liquid. That's very illiquid.
Right. But we are tokenizing real estate, so have to take that into account, right? Traditionally,
It's
yes,
still,
it's illiquid, but right now, because it's tokenized, it becomes a lot more liquid, actually.
yeah, but is that liquidity worth the opportunity cost?
Yes, that's the question. And that's the question we have to, I think, test it on the market. Right? I mean, this is a chance for foreign investors to invest into, markets like Taiwanese markets that they previously have no access or would be very, very difficult to access, right? And we do have I think there are different angles to this. Obviously, we are providing quality projects, right? With established brand, with reputation like Henry's, right? Their property manager. So basically, it's I guess it's a quote unquote safe investment, right? For investors anyway. And then they have the options to invest or take part in this, potentially with the capital raise the gain as well. Okay. With far less required capital than they, traditionally would be paying for because it's tokenized. Okay, so I think that's a potential win or gain benefit, at least on the funder's part. Okay.
I just sit there and I think that if you're talking about anybody that's got significant chunks of cash and they sit there and go, well, yeah, do I want to invest in a marketplace that I don't know anything about? Taiwanese marketplace. I know nothing about Taiwan, and what am I getting? I'm getting I'm getting a 1% share of.
Right. Okay, right. I think you brought out a great question, which is the risk appetite for our audience, right? Because I think for the so far for the
you make an
ICO
offer that I can't. You make an offer so good they can't refuse, right? So if you think about making them no-brainers, all I'm trying to find is what's the no-brainer angle. What's the thing where I don't have to think about it? So the liquidity element is a good argument, but I just sit here and I think people are gonna. I
want to build a stronger case, right? It has to be a stronger case.
Yeah, and I think also this argument about, well, property is a stable. No, it's not. People are losing money all the time from property. Property is a risky business. You don't get, otherwise you'd have every IFA sitting there going, buy more property, buy more property. They don't. Now, for other reasons, they steer you towards whatever they want you to do. But they all tell you to walk away from property because it's risky. I mean, all things are risky. In truth, I genuinely believe IFAs walk away from property because they don't make any money out of it, but that's a different thing. And it is becoming more regulated.
Okay, right.
So as much as you're saying, oh, it's a really fantastic asset, it's really all of those positives. There's enough people out there sending the opposite message. So it's got to be much clearer, and that's why if I sit there and I say, well, yeah, but I can get 3% just sticking it in the bank. That why would I go with a Taiwanese? Well, capital gain. Well, I'll invest in London then. I'll get just as good capital gain there. I don't have to worry about being in a foreign country. I don't have to worry about foreign entity. I don't have to worry about somebody I don't know. So if you want international investors, you have to think in a different way than just thinking about it from a localized perspective.
Mhm.
So I think, look, we've made some progress today, but I quite frankly need to get on and prepare for another
Okay,
meeting.
okay, sure. Appreciate it. Yeah, all right.
but-
So yeah, definitely. This is all right. So I'll invite Henry to the discussion, okay, for tomorrow. And basically we'll see, okay, see how that will work. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So thanks so much. All right. Then. Okay. Hopefully tomorrow will
See you
bring
tomorrow.
clarity. Yeah. Take care.
Yes.
Bye bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.